Hey everyone, my name is Leanne and welcome to my Booktube-a-thon wrap-up 2017. I didn't complete all of the challenges for the Booktube-a-thon. I read 6.5 books across the 7 days, meaning I completed like 5.5 plus 6/7 of the challenge. I didn't do any of the video or Instagram challenges or anything like that, and I wasn't particularly active on the sprints either, which actually ended up getting me thinking about a lot of things about the booktube community, which I may put into one whole video. But anyway, let's get on with the wrap up. The first challenge was to read a book with the person on the cover, and if you saw my TBR, you'll know that I extended this challenge to all but one of the other challenges and selected books that had people on the cover. But the book I read for this challenge specifically was The Green Road by Anne Enright, and I cannot for the life of me find where I put this book. I did read a physical copy of it, but I don't know where it's gone. We did a massive tidy up yesterday, so I guess it got tidied up to the point where I don't know where it is. This is a book about an Irish family and it is told from various different perspectives. We have the matriarch of the family, Rosaleen, and all of her children. Her children live in various different parts of the globe. They're all grown up. So each child has a chapter dedicated to them. And in 2005, the family come together for one final Christmas in the family home, which Rosaleen is planning on selling. I thought this book was really, really good. I love books about Ireland, I love books about families, and I've loved Anne Enright's writing in the past. So I was pretty sure I was going to really enjoy this book. It didn't quite leave me with the same... It didn't quite impact me in the way that The Gathering did, but I think that's to be expected when the first book you read from an author is arguably their best novel. What I thought was phenomenal about The Green Road is how morally complex it is and how flawed each of the characters are. Your sympathies don't really lie with any character in particular. The mother isn't particularly appealing, she doesn't seem to be a particularly nice person, but at the same time you do feel for her because she doesn't have a particularly close relationship with her children, she's lost her husband. Each of the children have their own complex lives, dealing with their own emotional difficulties. And no one seems to talk about that. The family don't communicate, they don't talk openly about their feelings, and I think that's another thing that we see a lot in Irish literature, is families not properly communicating about their pasts. I just love a bit of, isn't Ireland sad literature? But yeah, I thought this book was really great. I'm glad the Booktube-a-thon made me fly through it as quick as I did. The next challenge was to read a hyped book, and for this I picked up Paper Butterflies by Lisa Heathfield. This book definitely lived up to the hype. This book was incredible. So this is about a young girl named June, and we follow her through her life. I'm not sure how young she is at the start of the novel, but maybe... I'm not going to make a guess, but she is quite young, and you follow her through her teens and up into her young adult life. She lives at home with her father, her stepmother, and her stepsister, and when her father isn't around, her stepmother and stepsister are very abusive towards her. There is very graphic descriptions of the type of abuse she receives. June finds a form of escapism in going to visit her friend Blister, who makes little shapes out of bits of paper, including paper butterflies. I thought the language in this book was beautiful and the descriptions were stunning. I think the presentation of the stepsister character was done really well. We also have chapters which seem to be flashing forward to something else that we don't know what is happening. And when we do find out what is going on, I found the convergence of those two stories to be done really, really well, and I didn't expect what was going on. There are also elements of racial inequality in this book because June is mixed race, and that seems to be the root of some of the hatred that her stepmother has for her. I'm really impressed by this book and how it managed to pack in so much content, so much beautiful descriptions, and so much emotional power in a relatively short amount of pages. The next challenge was to finish a book in a day, and I actually ended up finishing 3 of my books in a day, and Kink and Particle by Tiffany Atkinson. This is a poetry collection with multiple perspectives, but a focus on women on the brink of the age of 30. It looks back into childhood and it looks at experiences of indulgent pleasure in people's 20s. There's quite a casual and intimate style to this poetry, and I think it was really well written. It's not my most favourite poetry collection that I've ever read, but I think it was a really strong collection, and this got a lot of attention when I put it on my Instagram story. If you do want to keep up with my reading in real time, be sure to follow me on Instagram. Tiffany Atkinson used to lecture at Aberystwyth University, which is the university that I have just graduated from and the place where I'm currently living-ish. There's a lot of mention of Aberystwyth in this collection and a lot of reference to it, which I really appreciated. It's really cool to see place names and things that you recognise from your own personal life in books. There were two poems that I enjoyed in particular, one of which was, of course, Aberystwyth short fiction, and I also really liked Sonnet to Hand-Rolled Golden Virginia. So yeah, I thought this was a really strong poetry collection and I would highly recommend it. Challenge 4 was to read a book about a character that was different from you. And for this challenge I decided to pick up The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. And this is a Black Lives Matter book. It's incredibly important and I think it's a testament to the YA genre that it is a YA book. YA is tackling political issues in a way that a lot of adult genres really don't. This is about a teenage girl named Star who is a witness to an unjustified shooting of her friend. He is a young black man and the police officer is white. And it follows on from that point and how Star becomes involved in activism. It looks at racial inequality and tensions on a number of different levels, from microaggressions all the way up to, of course, police brutality. It looks at complex and ingrained social structures which lead to racial inequality. But it also has the things you would expect from a YA novel. It looks at friendships, it looks at romantic relationships, and it looks at school life. But it looks at what race means to all of those things. What does it mean for Star to have a white boyfriend? How does it feel for Star to be in a predominantly white school? It was really refreshing to see a YA book where the protagonist has a really good relationship with her parents. There is no absenteeism here. Her parents are incredibly supportive and they make real efforts to educate her throughout the novel. And this book is just really, really well written as well. It's one of the best YA books that I've ever read. The next challenge was to read a book completely outdoors, and funnily enough, this was the challenge I did not complete. I was planning on finishing it off on Sunday, the last day of the Booktube-a-thon, but it just didn't really happen. To be fair, the weather was horrible that day, but the book that I almost completed for that was Persuasion by Jane Austen. I got 179 pages into this, so I wasn't too far off, and I will finish this off today on the last day of the month. So this is about a woman named Anne Elliot who was persuaded to break off her engagement to the man she loved because he was not successful enough. When he returns to her life, she gets the glimpse of a second chance of happiness. This is my third Austen novel, and I think it's probably been my least favourite. There are a lot of themes in this that I'm normally quite interested in, so the idea of class rigidity and social mobility, there's the theme of marriage, the changing ideals of being a gentleman. There are the silly parents that you might expect from an Austen novel, but I kind of felt a bit like, I get it. Like, I already feel like I understand what I'm supposed to be getting from this novel before I've even finished it. If you've read Persuasion, let me know what you think of it down below. Am I just missing something? I think I prefer Jane Austen's writing when she's being a bit funnier. So I think the next one of her works I'll pick up will probably be Emma. The sixth challenge was to read a book that you bought because of the cover, and for this I picked up The Girl of Ink and Stars by Kieran Millward Hargrave, and I thought this was a brilliant little book. So this is about a girl named Isabella whose best friend goes missing, and she joins the search party in order to try and find her. She is guided by an ancient map and her knowledge of the stars, and there are a number of fantastical elements to this story. I thought it was brilliantly written, and I thought the language used was superb. I thought it was a really immersive book, and even just the little illustrations that are included as you go along were really immersive and made you really feel like you were properly delving into this world. This may seem a bit of an odd way to recommend this book, but if you didn't enjoy Treasure Island, then you might enjoy this book. Just because it has to do with like ships and navigation and things like that, they're kind of similar in that way, although they are very different stories and very different ways of storytelling. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And the final challenge was to read 7 books. I didn't complete this one, obviously, because I didn't finish up Persuasion, but I did add another book into my reading. It was very, very short. And that was Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Anderson, or Sarah Scribbles. This is just a little collection of Sarah's cartoons. They're very funny, they're very #relatable. There were a lot of cartoons about the menstrual cycle, which I definitely related to during the time I was reading it. There's not much more to say about this book, but I thought it was really enjoyable, and if you haven't had the chance to pick up one of Sarah's books before, I would highly recommend it. It's just a really nice way to spend half an hour or so. So they are all of the books that I read during the Booktube-a-thon. How was your Booktube-a-thon? I saw some people did like really successfully and I was very impressed. I think the Booktube-a-thon this year was really healthy for me. I proved to myself that I can read quite a volume of books in a short space of time. Obviously I was picking books that were a little bit shorter, but with books like The Green Road per se, that's not a particularly short book, but because I devoted myself to getting it done and getting it read, I managed to do it. So I think this was a really valuable reading week for me. Anyways, let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what you think of them, how you got on with the Booktube-a-thon. Do you think you'll participate next year, and what did you think of the challenges? Let me know down below and we can have a little chat. I will talk to you guys in my next video.